So Mr. Wilson, if you'll just kind of give us some insight as to your career path and that how you got to where you are today, and
Sure.
sorry, somebody a name just popped up. How you got to where you are today, and what you kind of do in your everyday working environment, that sort of thing.
Sure. So let's see how I got here. So I'm from Conway. I moved to Conway in middle school age, around sixth grade, and lived there all through high school. Ended up going to college there at Hendrix College. When I graduated from Hendrix, in 2004, I moved to Fayetteville and went to law school, started law school, and started to, as far as it mentions the twists and turns. So this is probably the first twist and turn for me. I always believed I was going to law school. I mean, literally from sixth grade, pretty much even earlier than that, that law school was my destination. I got there. I really enjoyed the curriculum and the school. I was worried that I didn't have a direction that I wanted to go within that field. I wasn't sure which way I wanted to go. So I took some time off, worked for a little while with the prosecuting attorney's office, and worked there for a few years, and then decided that I preferred to go to business school, and ended up getting an MBA instead. And just that was probably the first twist. During that time, and that kind of in the middle there, I had an opportunity to switch over to hotel sales. I, all through high school, college, worked in counter sales. I worked at a camera shop for a long time and in a shoe store. And so sales was kind of already something I was comfortable with. And I saw the opportunity to get into hospitality sales, and I jumped on it. And they sort of took a chance on me in that moment because I hadn't sold hotels before, but it really ended up working out. Blossomed into a 15-year career in that field. And I kind of quickly rose up to be regional director of sales. We had 21 properties all over the country. And that allowed me to sort of see the inside and outside of hospitality, both from, just the hotel perspective, but also looking at event venues and things like that, hotels that have conference centers and hotels that have smaller spaces and things like that. And as I started to build on that career, the mayor of Fayetteville and some of the people in the tourism department here in Fayetteville sort of saw what I was able to do with bringing together the company that existed here in Fayetteville that I had started working for, and needed someone for that sort of position here in Fayetteville. The city owns several properties, an event venue, some historic properties, things like that around town, as well as some new things going in. I'm sure a lot of locals know things like the Ramble and Art Court on Dixon Street, the basketball court that just went in. Those all kind of fall into into that venue category. And I'm in charge of managing the team that runs those now. So I work for the tourism branch of the city of Fayetteville now. Experience Fayetteville is what it's called. Specifically, executive director of the town center, Fayetteville Town Center. A lot of people probably are planning on going to their prom there, or a wedding at some point, or it seems like everybody has had something that they've gone to the town center for. And so that's what I'm doing currently. And it's an interesting position because it's got, like I said, you've got the event venue space with the town center, and we've got a historical a house that's on the historical registry called Walker Stone House. That's a Civil War era house. And then we've got for instance, the Ramble, the new park going off of Dixon, and the Art Court, which is the basketball court that just opened on Dixon Street. So we've got a little bit of, old venue, new venue, and really old venue, all kind of mixed into one. And so my day to day in that position is a little bit, it's a little bit of everything. And that's kind of what I like most about the job, is that no day is the same. One day I am working with a team that is, doing the artwork for a mural that's going outside of a building. And then the next day I might be helping manage, some client expectations for a large event going on. For instance, we have a large meeting for Arvest. It's a statewide meeting going on. We also have the, conferences that come through the city, like the Arkansas Governor's Conference. We have the Auburn Tax Seminar that brings in tax accountants from all over the country. And that's another aspect of my job that I think is really unique and fun, that a lot of people probably don't realize falls into the hospitality sort of umbrella. And that part means that I help people, guide people through the permit process. So if somebody comes to town and they want to put an event on the square, they want to put an event that involves something that's sort of outside the perimeter of one of our facilities, then I help guide them through that process and work through that with them and make sure that they know all the steps that are required to do that. And I think a lot of people, that's probably the piece of the job that a lot of people don't realize takes a lot of detail and a lot of understanding. From that perspective, there's just, everything from knowing how many parking spots you're going to close to actually having to notify the people around where you're wanting to close streets, working with police and fire to make sure everything's safe. There's every kind of everything that goes into putting on an event like that. You can kind of think about, for example, Lights of the Ozarks. That's one of a big event that we help guide the process on. And so Park comes in and they do all the hard labor of putting up the lights and getting it set up so they turn on like they're supposed to. And then I help coordinate the process of getting the mayor on stage to flip the switch and give the speech and do the things and make sure that fire and police are there in case there's an emergency. And and guide everybody through that process and make sure that we have a nice easy evening event that has no issues from there. So that's kind of a quick overview of my sort of day to day. No day is ever the same. It kind of depends on what comes my way that day. And so really in this type of position, and I think this is kind of true for all hospitality positions, is you kind of have to be ready for anything to come your way. And you have to be a really a versatile person that's able to sort of switch gears quickly, because it can quite literally go from, helping the mayor figure out, where he needs to be for something or what kind of speech he wants to give to helping move some tables and get something ready so that because it didn't get placed in the right place for whatever reason. And so it's that's probably my favorite aspect, but it's also part that, I think a lot of people may not be aware of. I guess I can, day in the life is, coming in, checking email at the, in the office. That's kind of how I start the day, is sort of looking through, and hopefully there are no issues, no fires or anything to put out that that have popped up overnight or problems. And if there are, then I, switch gears, like I said, and do that. If they're not, then I start working on evaluating the sort of, I don't want to call it the boring part, but the part that's less entertaining is working through budgets. There's that aspect of this job as well. Making sure that each of the venues, because they all have their own independent budget, and making sure they're on task with spending and making sure that they have just each of the categories are covered as far as what they need to buy, and that they're not buying too much of something, and payrolls and things like that are taken care of. That's the sort of nitty gritty of the job, where I'm sort of dialing in and looking at the granular parts of that, of each of those venues, and making sure that from a profit perspective, they're still on task as well. And so that's kind of a quick run through of the day in the life. The education aspect, I kind of covered that a little bit with I graduated from Hendrix College. I got an MBA. I certainly do not think that those two things are required for this type of position. I think that they absolutely help, but I think that anybody could come in and with the right skill set and the right historic training, they could probably come in and be successful in this type of position. I think you could go to tech school as well and take care of that. And there are a lot of programs. The university has a particularly good program for the hospitality industry. I'm going to mute my phone here real quick. Sorry about that. I thought I muted it. I apologize for that. I think as far as the physical demands of the job, education-wise, I think the university has a really great hospitality program. I think there's a lot of, Arkansas Tech also has one if somebody's specifically interested in receiving a degree in hospitality. But I don't necessarily think that it's I don't know that that's a requirement for the position in this role or in any of the roles that sort of lead up to this. I think you could kind of choose the path that fits you best and fits your personality best. And I think that's probably the most important piece, is really figuring out and understanding who you are and how you work best. And you can make that fit. You can make that kind of work for you in this industry, which is great because there's a lot of different positions and there's a lot of different roles, and each role is important to the entire machine, as far as making an event function, and from the day the client walks in the door to the moment that the event actually takes place. I think that there are some physical demands from time to time for the job. I think I've done a little bit of everything from setting stages to just, like I said, working on budgets. So there's some mental aspect to it, and as well as the physical aspect. And that's, I think, another piece that makes it fun, entertaining, and easy to keep you interested. There are a lot of jobs that are really similar to this. I think everything from hotel general managers to directors of sales for hotels, event center general managers. I mean, every event center where you see a basketball game or a football game in the stadium, that venue has somebody that put that together and put all those details on paper and made sure that everybody was where they needed to be, and that everything was covered and all those bases were covered. So I think that's probably really, and that kind of starts to cover the areas that of the field of work that are close to mine. I think you can work anything from working in a hotel to working in a large stadium, NFL stadium or an NBA or a WNBA or wherever you see a large event, and between, and I guess it doesn't even, I'm sort of pigeonholing it into the buildings. I mean, you've got everything from that to large music festivals. We saw a really wonderful event in Bentonville this year, the Format Festival. That was a large music festival for this area, which is sort of new for our area, but they're all over the country. And so I think each of those events, a lot of people don't realize, like, there's a person behind that event that put those pieces together and made a lot of decisions and a lot of pieces put together and move together in the right way to make that event happen. I think that let's see, I'm looking at my list here. So salaries and pay really ranges. I think that certainly your certifications, whether you choose the path of the going to college, the collegiate path, or if you choose the certification path or the technical school path, that will dictate sort of where you start, I think, in some ways. And then from there, it's all about your commitment and your ethic to the job. I think that's really kind of the important thing, is in this industry, probably, even more so than some others, it's about the team. And so really, I'm just a small piece of these events and these programs that are put on by the city, and the team is really what brings it together and what makes it work. And I started out as a member of that team, and so each time I progressed up the ladder, that came with a salary increase or pay increase, and got to where I was. And so, like I said, I don't know that it's necessarily you absolutely have to have a degree in hospitality in order to make a career in this field work. but you know, there's some benefits and some drawbacks to that way as well. And goodness, there's a lot going on behind me. I'm sorry if that siren is going off. Um, and so I think that's the you know, that really kind of encompasses the pay scale. You know, it's about finding where you fit into that mechanism, and then going from there, and really putting in the effort, and making sure that you're part of the team, and willing to do what it takes to move up, and understanding that, you know, if you study the person that's ahead of you, and what they're doing, both right and wrong, because everybody makes mistakes and things happen, and some things are beyond your control. And so I think that's really important, is that just finding your sort of your style, and where you fit into that hospitality realm, and then finding somebody that really reflects what you want to do and how you want to be in the workplace. And that, I think that really helped me, you know, is finding someone that sort of I looked up to and saw as like, that's kind of what I want my trajectory to be, and seeing what they did. And you know, it's not necessarily about mimicking or copying what they did, as much as it is about just learning from their experiences that they can teach you. And finding that person, I think, is really, really helpful and really important. I think that's probably true across all industries, but specifically in hospitality, because, you know, those people have seen, the more events you do, the more crazy things you see. And so, you know, the more clients you work with, the more crazy questions you get, and the more things you get to put together. You know, it's what's most fun to me is when a client comes in and they ask for something that no client has ever asked for before, and we're able to make it happen. You know, whether it's, we've done horse-drawn carriages, we've done fire trucks, we've done, you know, everything you can think of. And to me, that's a really fun aspect, is being able to deliver for somebody who thinks they have a wild request, and really we've made it happen for them. And particularly when, you know, when it's somebody that you know, thinks that it's just not possible, and or they feel like it's not going to happen, and then you kind of come through for them. There's a lot of gratification there that's really helpful. And so I think the best ways to advance in this career, like I said, is just really, like I said, putting in the effort, and finding your place, and then finding that person to help guide you. As far as working in this company, working for the city has been wonderful. I think, you know, it's really kind of exciting to see sort of the inside of how the ordinances are written, and it's fun to be part of driving those decisions, and you know, being that person in the meeting that's able to say, have we thought about this, you know, or what if this happens, you know, those sorts of questions, and being able to ask those questions, I think, is really my career trajectory over time has sort of given me that ability to see, you sort of, when you get into this field, and especially as you sort of rise through the ranks of this field, I tell a lot of people that you kind of have to have a crystal ball, and you have to be able to sort of predict the future, and try to predict the future, at least as much as you can. And the more things, I tell people all the time, the more things we put together, whether it's an event or you know, something that's, you know, a conference or something like that, the more things we can think of that we can head off before they can happen, the easier that day is going to be, because nothing will surprise us that day. You know, we've got all the things that we thought could possibly happen knocked out and taken care of. And so the company is great. The city's got great benefits across the board, which is great. You know, we all have, you know, retirement insurance benefits that are great, and something that's really, I think, helpful and important.
Interruption. We need Taylor
And
Winston.
then I think, you know, I really think that people, I think that it's the hospitality industry. I think a lot of people don't realize how diverse it can be. You know, I think people, as far as recruiting people to come work in this field, I think is the best way to put it is that, you know, your day will never be the same, and you will always be entertained and meet new people and exciting people. And And I think that it's also important that people know that it's everything from hotels to event venues to historic homes, the hospitality industry, to party planning, wedding planning, all those things sort of fall under this sort of hospitality umbrella that I think is really exciting and has a really diverse, interest for people. I think that's probably the best sell I can make for this industry, is that, if you feel like you want to see a lot of different things and you want to be parts of everything from a wedding to the Razorback banquet at the end of the year, this is the field for you for sure. It's fun, and it's always something new. So I think that's the best recruiting pitch I can give for the hospitality industry. a wide variety and a lot of interesting things come your way. So and that, I think that rounds out the about me questions. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you hit most of them, if not all of them. I guess just some like general questions that we might have for you. Going back to your time getting your MBA, and I suppose a little bit into the law school in that, can you think of any classes specifically that helped you understand more of what you would be doing when you got into your career?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So the probably, and I think one of the most beneficial that's just been for me in my life as well, it was a finance class I took in my first semester of my first year getting my MBA. Just both the budgeting aspect of it, I think gave me a lot of insight into just the mechanisms of creating a budget and putting that together and thinking of all the things, because you're sort of like, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier about having to predict the future, and that you're trying to think of what sort of things are going to cost you next year, because you budget a year in advance. And so you're trying to not only think of the things that you're going to have to pay for next year, that your bills and things like that are always going to be there, and they're those are the one things. But maybe maybe I want to buy new tables for one of the venues. It's time to replace those, and so I have to think about those things ahead of time. And so I think that class really prepared me for that aspect of this position. And I think it was helpful in life as well. It sort of gave me some new ideas and new perspectives for figuring out the different budgeting things I needed to do in my home. I was just, I think that helped, and always getting some literacy. I would advise everyone, I think regardless of the field, to be honest, but particularly in the hospitality field, it's good to just have a good working knowledge of Excel, and that's really helpful. Even if you're just putting together a quick sheet about your home budget, there's a lot that you can do right there in just a few quick clicks that can help you out personally, that can help you out professionally in this field, but then that can also make you look like the rock star of your company, because it's just it's one of those tools that not a lot of people are really good at, and you don't have to be really good at it to make it work. And so if you can get a little bit of skill in that tool, that can take you a long way. And that, of course, that financial analysis class was pretty deep in the weeds when it comes to Excel, but just even your introductory course, I think, would be very helpful. I would have to say across the board in a lot of industries, but particularly in hospitality, just because it's going to do a lot of the work for you as well. Once you get a few of the basic things down, you can have that tool. It's like if you are in the construction industry and you went to work without a hammer, I think that it would be a lot harder to put up your frame for a house if you didn't have the hammer, and that Excel literacy really makes a difference. So,
well, coming off of your example there with the going to a job site with a hammer, and that what kind of personality characteristics would be most beneficial for somebody in your line of work? Obviously, someone more introverted in that wouldn't be as good at hospitality if they're trying to. So, kind of, what do you think?
Sure. That's, I mean, that's a great question. And I think that, like I think there's a place for everyone in the field. Certainly, being extroverted really makes the difference in sales, because you do have to have that client facing, that moments, where you're working out the contract and you're figuring out what their details are. Event coordinators, they're right there in the thick of it the morning the event starts, and they're working with the client, making sure that all their things are in line and everything's going smooth for their event. So yeah, to some degree that extrovertedness is important, but I think there are also careers within the field that don't necessarily require that. I think there's some we have a lot of, our facilities supervisor is really important to the process here. And, he makes sure everything is functional and running. And then also that everything is routinely maintained. And his position isn't necessarily as client facing as some of the others. And so there's, he does have that aspect of the position. And I've seen a lot of different people in those positions that, like I said, that don't necessarily have that extrovertedness, but still have a seat at the table. And they're the ones that are determining, they're telling the team, hey, I've got, carpet cleaning scheduled for this venue on this date. Be sure you don't book anything. And that, the sales team, if they don't write that down, then the sales team then you've got to work out with maintenance and with facilities and figure out what you're going to do in that case. And that happens sometimes, things get booked, and whether it means you move that facilities booking or you move the event booking, you've got to make that decision together. And so I think that personality wise, it's a lot less about introvert and extrovert, because I think there's a place for both personalities, but it's about being able to work on a team. And so I think in that respect, I think it's about being able to not insulate yourself and be able to be open and express, at least within your team, that, hey, if I this is my lane, I'm going to explain how things work and what I've done. And we're going to work it out together. And so it kind of comes back to just being a good team member for that perspective.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I had to make sure I wasn't muted again. Sorry about that. So you had talked previously about how there's some minor physical needs for your job, moving tables and work, like that sort of thing. Specifically for you, who works a lot more with like logistics and that, were there some high mental demands for your job? Is it extremely stressful going through and working with so many different people and coordinating so many different things at the same time?
Yeah, so that's also a great question. I think stressful is a great word. I describe it a lot of times as it's spinning plates. A lot of times it's just making sure that all the balls stay in the air at once when you've got this many venues and this many team members. But that's, again, I credit the team for that. As long as everybody does their job and make sure that they're doing their part, then I think that everything typically works out. Those physical demands for me come in when there's an emergency, and that's sort of part of being a leader in my position, is knowing when, hey, we've got to get this done. This is an emergency, and sometimes it's because there was a mistake made, and you can get frustrated by that, but that doesn't really solve the problem. And so for me, it's a lot less about getting frustrated in those moments and just figuring out the solution. And that's, I think, where the mental aspect of it comes, is just being a good problem solver and being able to put aside that frustration and in the moment and say, okay, we're here now. What do we do? You can talk all day long about whose fault it is or what happened or how the ball got dropped, but the ball needs to be picked up. And so I think that the best way to to solve that is, maybe you revisit that. We do a lot of event debriefings. I think those are really helpful when you do have things like that happen, to figure out what can be done in the future. But really good teams do really good work together, and I think that's probably the most important aspect of it. It can be mentally taxing trying to keep it all together and all running, and making sure those pieces of it are all functioning. But that's where I think being really organized comes in, and just making sure that that you've got everything. Everything. I'm a firm believer in writing everything down. That's sort of an old school way, and I certainly know there are better ways and newer ways to do it. And I do everything in double form, so everything gets written down and recorded electronically, and that helps me stay organized. And I think that's really that helps keep some of the mental tax off of me, and some of the stress down, is just knowing that each piece is in place. And in this industry, you can't prepare for everything. And so, like I said earlier, it's about being versatile. And so you can put as many stop gaps in place as you want, and something will find its way in there. And so being versatile is really the key.
Thank you for answering that.
Yeah.
So kind of looking at your progression, going from law school and working with a prosecuting attorney for a while, into getting your MBA, and then hotel sales, and then into tourism for Fayetteville, the tourism department for Fayetteville. I'm sorry. It was kind of a hop, skip, and a jump sort of thing from one thing to another. Regarding your education experience, right, in law school and gaining your MBA, how did those help you get into, first the hotel sales and then into hospitality? And have you looked at any other? I know you seem very happy where you are right now, but for our students, what other kind of opportunities could that open up for them going into business?
Yeah, sure. I think really it was quite a hop, skip, and a jump. That's a great way to describe it. It really, for me, it was really just, law school started. I was, about a year through, and it was like I said earlier, it was about knowing yourself, and I really I had this feeling that that this just wasn't the way I saw myself working, and I knew that I wanted something that had that client facing aspect to it, and not to say that I wouldn't have had that in the law field. It was in working in the prosecuting attorney's office. It was a little bit, I'll just be honest, it was a little darker place to work, and so for me, I thought, I just like this doesn't seem quite as fun as I want my career to be. And the MBA, going to business school, was just an easy, quick pivot. I hate to say easy, it certainly wasn't easy, but it was an opportunity to pivot. And I sort of, to be honest, I tumbled into the hospitality industry. Sales was what I was looking for, and because I had the experience in that field, and really fell for hotels during that time. When I started working in hotels, the company I worked for had 13 properties at that time, and all of them sort of operated independently. And I was able to take some of the knowledge that I had gotten in business school and different classes within that realm, particularly supply chain and things like that. And I was able to convince the company owner that there might be a better way for us to operate, and a more efficient way for us to operate. And he took to it. And that's actually because probably the best answer to the question is that led to the trajectory, because it was, 15, I spent 15 years with that company. I really enjoyed it. I still have a lot of really close friends there. But it was that moment, and then what resulted from that moment, because we grew from 13 to 21 properties, and actually even more than that, beyond that. It was that got me noticed. And so I was able to, you know, they saw this company in Fayetteville that went from, you know, this relatively small company in Fayetteville, and the hotels started to operate much more efficiently. And the CEO of the tourism department noticed, like, you know, that these hotels were operating much more efficiently, wanted to know more about it. And then that just one step led to the next. And that's sort of what got me there. And so even, you know, I credit my first job in high school or junior high, you know, working in the camera shop, just selling cameras, doing counter sales. That can really, those types of positions can lead to where you go in life. And so I think that, you know, I encourage people to take those things seriously. You never know, you know, whether it's, you know, waiting tables or working in someplace doing, you know, selling shoes. It's it can turn into something that really changes your life.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I really appreciate it. I think now is about the time that we can open it up to our students to kind of send in questions for us. I think they'll post them in chat, and I can kind of read them out to you if you like, I believe. Or those of you that are teachers, like Coach Carroll and that, if you guys have questions that students are articulating, you can chime in. I guess while they're gathering questions, I actually have a personal question for you.
Sure.
So you were talking about how you go through your emails and that every morning to kind of look at what the day has for you and that. And as someone that's, you know, kind of what's the phrase? I guess elbow deep in the tourism experience for Fayetteville, how do you make decisions on what exactly is priority for that day? Because I'm sure you have plenty of things that'll go from day to day.
Sure. That's a great question. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's prioritizing is probably the toughest and most important part of the job. It's figuring out, you know, what's on the you know, what's on the burner and what's burning kind of situation. And so I think, you know, as far as how I go about that, that's you know, kind of day to day. I mean, clearly, you know, emails from the mayor come first, and then my boss, the CEO of Experience Fayetteville, those kind of get moved up because that's something that needs to be addressed, and then I kind of move from there. You know, I think with, you know, in the hospitality industry and with the events side of it, I sort of prioritize things by date, you know, what's coming soonest, and is this a question about a particular event or something that's right on the horizon that could be something that needs to be solved in the immediate. You know, we have times where you know, one of our events may have been vandalized or damaged or something like that. You know, that's something that we clearly want to get taken care of pretty quickly. You know, things like that. So it's sort of, like I said, it's about watching. It's kind of, you know, to put an analogy to it, it's like watching the stove. You know, what's bubbling over and what needs to be taken care of quickly. And that's sort of, I put those emails in a list together, and then I just start digging through them.
Thank you for answering that for me. That was just a point of personal curiosity, and I thought the kids would need it anyways.
Yeah. It's you know, really about, you know, sitting down and prioritizing what you think is going to be and to be honest with you, I don't always get it right. You know, sometimes something is a little bit higher priority and I thought it was a lower priority, and it ends up being, you know, I've got a team member that comes running up and says, "Hey, did you see this email?" And you know, I'm like, "Yeah, I saw it. I hadn't gotten to it yet." And, you know, so we solve it in that moment. And so it kind of comes back to what I said about being, you know, being able to be versatile and being able to stop what you're doing and switch gears in that moment, because sometimes things pop up and it's got to be taken care of. You know, if you've got an event going on in a space, you know, we did a photo shoot at the basketball court with the Razorback basketball team, and all of a sudden the power went out. And so we had to figure out a way to get the lights back on and on the court for them. And so, when we were able to scramble and figure that out and never could have predicted that. So it's just one of those things where you have to be able to be quick on your feet and make some quick decisions. So.
Thank you very much for sharing. Let me, I'll open the floor again. I have another question for one of my students, but I'll open the floor for the other teachers real quick. Do any of you all have any questions for him? They're stunned into silence.
I covered it all, I guess. I covered it all.
it's everything they ever wanted. How about something that they won't actually think about? In your experience, looking back now, what are some things that you wouldn't have thought of like as important as a teenager that you wish you had thought about earlier in your life, retrospective?
Wow, that's a great question. I suppose, I think that, something maybe I probably wouldn't have thought about as a teenager is how the people that I meet and the people that I talk to, those people, you're going to run across those people again, and those people impact your life, whether it's impacting your life or it's, it's that interaction, and then you run across them again, years later, and, they've got some need for your service or your, wherever you may work. And so I think that that's probably, a lot of times, I think if you'd asked, high school me, I would have assumed that half the people I met on the day-to-day basis, after high school or after college, I might not run across again unless I was in contact with them. And, lo and behold, I start my position here at the city, and a guy that I was great friends with all through high school works for the city. And I didn't even know he lived in Fayetteville. I didn't realize that, we had lost touch. And one of the first people, as I was kind of working my way around the city departments and introducing myself, both of us, I set the meeting up, and it was, via email. And so both of us were, when we met, we were both kind of like, is this the same guy? Is this, who? And we walked in, we're like, hey, we're both from Conway, like, hey, remember that, and so I think that that's probably one of the things I wouldn't have really thought about is that, is making sure that those interactions were positive, and those things, it does you well to treat people right and do the right thing. And I think that comes back, whether it's, tomorrow or 30 years later. So.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. Coach Carroll, do you have any questions from your students? No. Let's see. Stetson, do you have any questions from your students? Ms. Quinn? Well, I actually did have another question, if I can remember what it was. Oh, yes. Going back, looking back at your education again, I'm taking you back to college all the time. While you were both in law school and getting your MBA, right? There's plenty of opportunities for extracurricular activities. Were there any specific extracurricular activities or that you got into that kind of helped push forward your business sense or helped you later in with your job in that? Sorry.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think I'm not sure that these necessarily helped me in the business sense. But my time, I played basketball and ran track and cross country in high school and college. And Hendrix is Division III, and a lot of people are probably like, why would you do that at Division III level and or something like, they may feel that way about it. But for me, it taught me a lot about teamwork. It really taught me a lot about, where my place needed to be as a team member early on and where my place was as a leader later on. And so, really taught me a lot about also prioritizing. I just knowing that I had a test, later on that week, and also had a track meet, early in the week. And so I needed to get things taken care of in the right amount of time, and being able to set those priorities. It was a struggle early on in college, especially when I started those extracurriculars. And, I was also involved in, campus politics and things like that, student council and stuff like that. But I really think that probably some of the most formative times for me were really with track and cross country and basketball. Just that camaraderie and figuring out that teamwork really makes a difference, and having people there to help you and lean on and work with, and also that not only help you, but that you help, and in those moments. And so it's just knowing that sort of brought me to here, where I'm able to sort of help people and coordinate teams from, all across the city. I work with everyone from the sewer department, sewer and water, to, the tourism department, to the mayor's office, to, every office, and every team is a little bit different and has its own dynamics. And I think that that's part of what I learned, throughout high school and college, is like each year as the teams changed, there's a different dynamic to it, and there's a different piece, and being able to figure that out, in that time really gave me I find myself revisiting moments like that a lot in my career. And so I think that's probably some of the most formative extracurriculars I had, for sure.
All right. Well, thank you for answering that for me. They look pleased with that answer. Well,
I'm not the quarterback, Tyler Wilson, but it's
just almost there.
Yeah, we're good friends, and I tell him all the time, like, I was Tyler Wilson first. I'm older, so I started the trend.
Let me see. I don't want to monopolize your time for only my class's questions. I'll open it again if anybody else wanted to pose Mr. Wilson any questions. Well, I'll go ahead and give you another one while they're thinking about it. One of my, I'm kind of rewording some of these to make at least more sense to me. Hopefully they make more sense to you as well. So you had said before that you kind of had a passion towards sales, that was really something you connected with. You started when you were younger, and continued into sales with selling hotels, and then kind of, I know, working with the public in that, it's always a little bit about having a silver tongue in that. So do you have any pointers for our students that are wanting to get kind of into sales and into working more one-on-one with people about how to kind of cinch that sale?
Yeah, that's a tough question. So it's not easy to practice sales, but I tell people all the time, you do kind of have to practice, and really a lot of it is things like this. In some ways, I encourage people to, it sort of sounds like the cliche, but volunteer for things. I think if you even have kind of an inkling that you're interested in the hospitality industry, volunteer for a few things and see where you fit. And I think that sort of kind of opens some doors and gets you conversational with people. And if you can find that comfort level. For me, it was kind of fun. It was the game of selling that kind of got me hooked on it. Working through, starting with, cameras. I had an interest in photography. And so that sort of got me there. And so find something you're interested in, and try to find those avenues that will either give you an opportunity to volunteer or get a job within that interest, and or even something that's sort of related to that interest. And it can kind of grow from there. And I think that's where you can find those opportunities to practice with somebody and have a lot of conversations. I think that's the biggest piece. And that's what will get you over some of those sort of hurdles of being nervous about that. You know, even if you are an introvert, I tell people a lot of times, I know a lot of introverted people, or people that would say they're introverted, they're in sales, you know, and you believe it or not, you know, and because it's, you know, it's about the conversation, less than it is about necessarily, you know, a lot of people think, you know, you think sales and you immediately jump to sort of the knocking on your door, selling you encyclopedias or something like that. Kids probably won't remember that now that I think about it, but kids, they probably won't know what I'm talking about there. But that's, but you know, a lot of people think of that type of sales, and there's a lot of different types of sales out there, and different products, but also different ways of selling. And you don't have to be sort of the annoying salesman that people see. I got into two careers that people, you know, like, you know, notoriously make jokes about, you know, salesmen and lawyers. You know, there's a lot of jokes about those careers, and I think that there's a lot of ways to sort of to mitigate that and make it a lot less of a moment where it's nerve-wracking for you, and it, you know, somebody doesn't want necessarily to talk to that in that moment, then it's not that time. And so I think that's the way to approach that. But I would encourage, you know, students, as you're working through it, find your ways to practice, you know, have those conversations within, whether it's within your job or even with, you know, your parents or friends or something like that. Just, you know, when you start talking about those things that you enjoy, you start to find your voice in that field. And it can really change the trajectory for you, and sort of open your mind and let you realize that, hey, this isn't something that I'm nervous about.
All right. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. I have another one. My kids keep handing me papers.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I love it.
But let me make sure real quick. I don't want to monopolize you. Just for my classroom, let me see if anybody else, Coach Carroll, Ms. Quinn, anybody have any other questions? Okay. Sorry. No? Okay. You impressed upon us your kind of the fluidity in your workday before, pardon me, and kind of tangential off of your fluid workday. How much autonomy do you have regarding like the work that you do, and do you have like a direct boss above you, or are you mostly free to be able to work on the projects that you think would be most beneficial for the business?
So it's a little bit of both. I definitely have a boss, and both in the hospitality and in the hotel business. I work directly with the owner of the company. And in this position now, I work directly with the CEO of the Experience Fayetteville, the tourism branch of the government, and the mayor. And in those two positions, there was a lot of autonomy. I mean, there's a lot of expectation for me to be a self-starter and take care of things. They know I've got the projects that they've given me, and you know, they expect progress to be made. As far as somebody that oversees it, they do expect me to. I do directly report to them, and so when I have my meetings, or when we recap things, or you know, go over certain projects that we're working on, they're going to see if I haven't made any progress. So you know, from a day-to-day perspective, there's maybe not somebody necessarily that I'm working with that's telling me, hey, go here, do this, do that type of situation. But I do know that, you know, I am gonna, you know, whether it's, you know, my weekly meetings in the mayor's office or with the CEO, you know, there are going to be those moments where, you know, they check in on the progress, and they're going to notice if there's not progress. And so it's sort of, there's a lot of independent work that goes on. And so I have to sort of, you know, be a self-starter and work in that way. So yeah, it's in some ways it's tough because I tend to let things pile up, but I'm kind of let it pile up and work through and get it done. And then, and do it that way. But it's all about your work style. And I think that it could definitely be, somebody could be just as efficient, working through each thing as it comes as well. So.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. We got like 8 minutes left before we actually have our changing period here. So we might have enough time for one or two more questions, depending on how in depth they are. I'm gonna bounce it back to the other teachers in here to see if they have any other questions from their students. I feel like I've been a little bit greedy with your time.
Not at all.
All right, nobody's unmuting. So I actually have another. I guess this one will be kind of simple since it's. But one of my students had missed the beginning when you were talking about Experience Fayetteville, and that could you give a few examples of what you guys have done in recent years for Experience Fayetteville, and like generally actually Miss Larimore, she had a student want to know your favorite part of the job.
Okay, I could probably hit both of those. So like my favorite part of the job, I really think that my favorite part is pretty easy to answer. It's when no matter what the event is, even from the hotel days to today, if it's Lights of the Ozarks, or if it was a wedding that was happening at the hotel, or and our Arvest is having a lunch at one of our facilities today, a big get together from across the state. It's that moment when the event starts and everything's going, and it's going, and you step back and you look at it and you see like this happened, it's happening, and there's the train is down the track, that kind of situation. That's probably my favorite part, is like, the feel good moment of like, we did it, and here it is. There's always the dread of something that could happen. I don't want to sidestep that, but in the middle, but hopefully nothing happens and everything's good. But that moment where it gets started and everything's going good, it's great. And that's probably my favorite part. I think the idea or the question about Experience Fayetteville, there's a lot of things that Experience Fayetteville does that a lot of people don't realize. We had the large mountain bike races that are put on. Really, Experience Fayetteville as a whole, the direction of that division of the city government is the goal was to bring people from outside of Fayetteville into Fayetteville. And so we're really the sales side of selling Fayetteville to tourists and to people who want to come to the area and experience the wonderful city that we have, and the wonderful area that Northwest Arkansas is. And so our job is to promote that at conferences. It's odd to say, but it's conferences for conferences. So for people that put on conferences, we go to conferences and explain to them why they should have their event here in Fayetteville, and get them interested in Northwest Arkansas as a whole. And so that's, everything from, we have our local events as well that like, some people might be familiar with First Thursday, Lights of the Ozarks, and things like that the city internally puts on. And then we also have those things that I was talking about, those conferences that we go out and we bring in from outside. And so we'll have, the state governor's conference was here. The governor's conference was here this year. Next year, I think it's in El Dorado. They kind of move it around each year to a different city in the state. And so, but things like that are sort of what Experience Fayetteville as a whole is charged with doing, is bringing those things and making Fayetteville and Northwest Arkansas appeal to tourists and come to this area.
All right, great. Thank you. It looks like we just have like a couple of minutes left. So did anybody else have any questions for him before we need to go? I want to make sure I got everybody. I kind of monopolized your time there. I don't see anything right now. So just kind of as a wrap up, do you have anything that you want to specifically share about your job or your experiences that you feel would be impactful for our high schoolers looking towards a business-oriented career in the future?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think really it's about figuring out your work style and who you are and how you want to work. Because whether it's the college path, the technical school path, getting certifications, all three of those can provide you a happy and fruitful job, a career in this industry. And so it's really about figuring out how you work best and where that fits within this sort of machine that is hospitality and tourism. I think those things sort of and in all businesses really, it's just a real understanding of who you are and how you work best is going to make you feel empowered to do your best work going forward. And so I think that's probably the best advice that I could give is really work early to figure that out, because the longer you wait to figure that out, the harder it's going to be for you to sort of move up through the pathway.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Mr. Wilson. It was very enlightening for me at least. And I have several students that seemed very happy with your presentation and the information that they garnered from you. So we greatly appreciate you coming in to talk to us today.
Absolutely. It was wonderful.
All right. Thank you, sir. And I think I'm going to end the recording.